Hello, this is Frank Falvey with Frank Presents, and it's my honor and privilege to have State Representative Jeff Roy. Jeff, you're running for re-election.
Yes, sir.
You've had a public service career that's outstanding and goes back quite a while. You must feel real comfortable now in the position of state rep and have the knowledge and experience of how to not only get things done, but what is the policy that you need to put in place?
Well, it's been an exciting 12 years on Beacon Hill, and then you take the 14 years of local service that I had before then with the school committee, a school building committee, and town council. It really has translated well to a successful career on Beacon Hill, and my record of absolutely getting things done, delivering for the community is something that I'm very proud of. I have a lot more to go, and there's a lot more work to do, and I'm looking forward to getting reelected and sent back for another term.
Well, you had an ad in the local Franklin paper that outlined not only your experience, education, but outlined what you brought to the communities you represented. Maybe you could just speak about the ad and,
Sure.
and what prompted you to publish it.
Well, it's nice to remind people where we have been together on this path. Important to me that folks understand what happens up on Beacon Hill. I invite people to the State House frequently to come in. You came in and took a tour, and we filmed that. But there's a lot of action that takes place in that building, and I have been so honored to represent and be the lead negotiator on all climate change and energy legislation in Massachusetts. I've been doing that role since 2021, and we have put forth three major pieces, comprehensive pieces of legislation on climate and energy. And you can see the offshore wind industry burgeoning in Massachusetts, creating jobs and giving Massachusetts energy independence for the first time in 100 years. I don't know if you recall, but 100 years ago, we lit the nation with whale oil coming out of New Bedford. And nowadays, and for the past several decades, we've been importing natural gas from Pennsylvania. This offshore wind that we are developing right now gives us the chance to create our own energy, so we don't have to be exposed to price spikes and things like that. So that's, in the energy front, been doing a lot of work there. I chaired the Higher Education Committee 4 years ago, and during that term we passed legislation increasing transparency and financial stability for colleges and universities. I don't know if you recall, but Mount Ida closed just as I was taking over that committee. So we did put some laws in place to prevent something like that from happening again. We did a bill on campus sexual violence and creating rules to establish that, and these all came out of my committee. And I also had the displeasure of chairing that committee during COVID, and COVID had an enormous hit on everybody, but in the higher education space it was incredible. And before that I was the acting chair of the healthcare finance and passed a major piece of healthcare finance legislation. In the education space, the Genocide Education Act and the other two pieces of legislation that I talked about for higher education. So it's been a real universe of topics that I've been able to cover, but bringing my skills as a trial lawyer to the House floor has led to a number of successes that I'm very proud of, and we produced that in that ad in the paper, and that same ad is going to run in the October issue as well. And then, beyond passing legislation, we talk about the thousands of calls I field from constituents who are having trouble with, unemployment, health care issues, COVID issues, You name it, I get people who call in and we take care of them. And finally, the bottom line is all of the money that has been brought into the district and the earmarks that we have done to support nonprofits like the Franklin Food Pantry, the Medway Community Farm, the Safe Coalition, which I'm extremely proud of, having been one of the co-founders of that organization in 2015. To see what it has grown into 8 years later is just incredible. So, you know, I wanted folks to get a chance to see my record, and if they didn't want to look at the print portion, I know it's a bit wordy, there's a QR code on the ad that will take folks to a video which really highlights the work that we have accomplished together over the past 12 years.
I particularly think about the Safe Coalition, that when that very first meeting at the high school, you stepped forward from your lawyer point of view and really helped them become a nonprofit organization that has really blossomed. And the other thing you didn't happen to mention that still has impressed me, but I don't think you've had a chance to succeed yet, is that cities and towns can take homeowners' property for taxes and sell that property and keep the money. And you were one of the first people from a newspaper article that filed legislation and actively over the years have worked for that legislation to become law. It hasn't happened yet, has it?
It has happened.
It has
As a matter of
happened.
fact, it was part of the FY25 budget that we got that language in, and that homeowners will no longer be subjected to that unlawful process. They will not have their homes taken out from under their feet without them even knowing. We put some strict laws in place to protect the sanctity of home ownership, and people are not going to be taken advantage of. I first read about this I think it was 2018 or 2019.
Right.
It was a story about a family from Easton, Massachusetts, where their house was taken from them improperly. You know, it was interesting that through this process, the United States Supreme Court issued an opinion and said that the practice was unconstitutional. Now, I don't always agree with this particular Supreme Court, but I was really delighted to see that they issued that opinion, and I think that really helped us in codifying it in Massachusetts, and that got over the hurdle just this August.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
And congratulations, and I noticed it was other people that got the credit, but it was you that was at the ground that started the ball rolling.
Well, I have a plaque that sits on my desk that is my mantra for legislating. As long as you don't care who gets the credit, you can get a lot of things done. And that plaque sits on my desk. It's the first thing people see when they walk into my office. I don't mind sharing credit with other people as long as the work gets done, and that's how I felt about that particular legislation.
The town sent out, or not sent out, but offered a survey to people over the internet on branding. Now, I have no idea what branding means, but I gather it doesn't mean changing the Franklin seal. It means trying to describe what kind of town we are.
Sure.
And the very last question was, what is it about Franklin that is unique than other communities? What does Franklin have that other communities don't have?
Well, it is...
Oh,
you have more. Okay, I'm sorry.
More. The only answer that I could think of and wrote, it has Jeff Roy.
Oh, you are too kind.
And I am really committed to saying that it has you that has really instigated community. You have exemplified community and bringing it together and everything that is wonderful about Franklin. So I hope whatever branding is, that you'll be there.
Well, you are too kind, and I thank you for that. I absolutely love this community. I love representing this community. I love bragging about this community on Beacon Hill. And I tell the story to everyone who comes into my office, because there's a huge display about Horace Mann in my office. And I remind folks that Horace Mann was born here in Franklin. He used the books that Benjamin Franklin donated to the town to educate himself, to get into Brown University, to become the first commissioner of public education and establish a system not only in Massachusetts, but throughout the United States and even other parts of the world. And I said the intersection of those books and public education in America really started here in Franklin, Massachusetts. And I think the folks in the community have truly embraced it. I embraced it as a member of the school committee for 10 years, and it drove me to go to Beacon Hill to further our efforts in the education space. And you know, I have three major themes that I focus on Beacon Hill: climate, energy, and global warming, education, and substance use disorder. I do a host of other things, but those are the main drivers of my work.
Chair of the Manufacturing Caucus.
Yes.
Can you clarify for me that we had offshore wind and we were going to bring it to Cape Cod,
Yeah.
and we had a contract with a couple of companies. Then we had off of Nantucket the wind, and some of the arms broke and drifted ashore.
Sure.
Where do we stand? It seems like we're something is going amiss, or what's happening?
So back a few years ago, the legislature, put in place laws to secure 5.6 gigawatts of wind energy by 2030. We are first in the nation with a commercial scale offshore wind farm, which is currently under construction down in about 20 miles south of Martha's Vineyard. We have about 20 to 25 turbines up of a proposed 62 turbines. Right now,
this is off Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard?
Martha's Vineyard, 20 miles south of Martha's Vineyard.
South?
South, yes. So there's a leasing area of about 7 spaces. All of them will be doing offshore wind turbines. But the first one is Vineyard Wind, which is out there. It's producing power today, sending power to the grid for about 100,000 homes right now.
Is this where the arms broke?
One arm, one blade,
Yeah.
collapsed and fell into the Atlantic Ocean. Let me tell you what happened there. It's a manufacturing defect. Wasn't sealed properly, and it allowed the blade to crash. Now let me tell you, for offshore wind, that's a horrible optic, and that was a terrible thing to happen. What the result was that you had some debris that closed a beach for one day in Nantucket. It's a horrible event, but it's not a reason to stop with offshore wind. What we are trying to do, some have called that a disaster, that a blade fell into the ocean. But what I'm saying is, the disaster is the rising sea levels that are causing houses to fall into the ocean because of erosion. Think of the debris that goes with a house: asphalt shingles, wood, piping, porcelain.
All right, but what about the other thing where we had contracts?
Right.
And they pulled out of the contracts, the state agreed with it. What's happening there?
So, unfortunately, there was a war with Ukraine, and that cut off the supply of natural gas to Europe, and it also cut off the supply to the United States of America. It sent supply chain issues on top of COVID. We had a bunch of supply chain issues, which drove up the cost of offshore wind, and the developers who were producing these wind farms could no longer do it economically. They were going to go out of business. So they had a right to cancel their contracts. They had to pay substantial penalties to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Commonwealth has collected those default charges, and then we went out to rebid on all of those projects plus. So a procurement, an RFP went out earlier this year trying to secure 3.6 gigawatts of wind energy. 2 weeks ago, the bids were open, and Massachusetts is ready to move forward with 2.6 gigawatts of energy. That's more than we lost. So some of the players who defaulted on their contracts were able to rebid and get back into the market. So those bids will be before DPU within a month, and DPU will evaluate them and hopefully get us back on track.
Will it be in the same area, and it will be wind and then coming to the Cape Cod
Yes.
Area?
Yes. So right now, the wind from Vineyard Wind 1, the project that's underway, that power is going into Covell's Beach down in Barnstable. So that's already wired and hooked up, and that power is coming in. What we're looking at is where it's going to come in from the next phase, the 2.6 gigawatts. Whether some of that will go, Dowses Beach is one of the possible sites. Another possible sites, which we're reviewing legislation for, is the power plant down in Sandwich. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's at the end of the Cape Cod Canal. And
not the nuclear plant. That's been decommissioned, hasn't
no,
it?
this the nuclear plant is up in Plymouth. This is JERA, which is an oil and gas-fired plant.
Oh, okay.
They have access to the grid, which is a great point. We're asking the administration to review that as a potential access point for the offshore wind coming in from future projects.
You know, Jeff, as we talked, I've asked you to come back again in the beginning of October. And two things that I would like to cover is 2026 is fast approaching, and you're on a great committee of for the celebration of the 200th anniversary.
250th.
250th anniversary. If you could kind of prepare for that, and
Sure.
and you know, maybe prepare for some other policy questions.
Yeah.
But the legislature, as you mentioned, education wise, the colleges still are closing. They're following the rules. What is your thought on colleges and the viability of colleges?
Well, when I was the chair of the committee, there were 106 colleges and universities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And what we had seen, and a lot of studies have demonstrated, that people are having less children, and the demographics as you moved up were showing that we were not going to have the demand for colleges and universities that we have had in previous years. So that was going to put a strain, particularly on the small private colleges. And since then, we've seen Mount Ida close, Becker College close, and then there was another campus in Newton that the name escapes me. They're feeling the effects of this demographic shift where there aren't as many students going. We saw that and said, we don't want another Mount Ida to happen in Massachusetts. So we changed the rules and made sure that our private institutions were providing enough data and enough advanced warning so that students who were thinking of going to a school or who were already there we were hoping for at least 18 months notice so that they could make plans for where to transition. My involvement in this came from a Franklin family whose son had just finished his third year at Mount Ida. And they told him in May of that year that he wasn't going to have a school to go to to graduate. And that was just unacceptable. And even though we've had college closures since then, nobody has been put in that untenable position. And that's because we strengthened the law, and that came out of the Higher Ed Committee that I chaired, and I worked very closely with the college associations. Dean College President Paula Rooney was very helpful, and Governor Baker. We worked together to come up with a bill that prevented those untenable things from happening again.
The state legislature seems very reluctant to add cost of living to bills. And, you know, one of them was the minimum wage. But I'd like to bring up the personal deduction in Massachusetts. I don't think that has changed in years. So that economic power that it was when it was first introduced, I believe should still be retained at that economic level. So there needs to be cost of living. The deduction for interest on state banks is $200, I believe, per individual. Again, that hasn't changed in many years, and I even read an article that one of your colleagues wants to do away with it because it would give the state $4 million more. We want to invest in state banks. State banks help our economy. So there was one other one that's escaping my mind right now, that we're not putting cost of living as part of the bills. What's the objection?
You know, you want predictability in your budgeting. And, you know, if you put in pieces like that, it might, you know, throw you into a real mess at some point in the budget process. I agree with you wholeheartedly that we should revisit the amount of the deductions and make sure that they make sense in these economic times. But those are things that we can revisit, you know, with each budget year or with legislation. I agree with you wholeheartedly that let's keep that deduction for the state banks. Granted, the interest rates have not been great for the past 5 or 10 years, so if you're approaching that $200, then you are living pretty well. But I think it's important that we help and preserve our state banks. We've got some great ones right here in the community of Franklin and Medway, and I want to see them thrive.
I have found that Dean Bank, at least the last couple of years, has been very competitive in the CD rate that they've been offering. Now we can expect the CD rate to go down now that the Fed. But
Yeah.
Jeff, what's a question I haven't asked you and you really want to go to town on talking about it?
I think the only thing I could say, I mean, you are thorough, without question. Why do I want to go back to Beacon Hill? Why do I want to continue doing this job? Is something that I'd love to address.
Go ahead.
I enjoy this work. It's the honor and privilege of my life to represent the citizens of Franklin and Medway. I've met a lot of great people along the way. We've had a lot of success together. And I'm now reached the point where I can truly get things done on Beacon Hill. I can truly deliver for our communities. I can get the legislation that's necessary for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I have the perseverance, the empathy, and what it takes to do this job. And I have a lot more to offer. And that's why I'm asking people to vote for me on November 5th.
That's the long memory that you develop over your career of how to get things done. And next time we meet, we'll talk about why you love making policy.
Great.
But yes, November 5th at the Franklin Fieldhouse, not Fieldhouse,
No,
the
it
gymnasium.
used to be the Fieldhouse, the gymnasium.
Gymnasium.
And I'll be there all day, so if you have a question or you want to come and meet with me, I will be at the polls from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and would be delighted to chat with you.
But if they want to reach you before then,
Yep.
How can they do that?
So my email address is jeff.roy@mahouse.org. I have a website at jeffreyroy.com. And my telephone at the State House takes calls. I have a great staff there that gets the information to me. So, and some people communicate with me on Facebook Messenger. So whatever your preferred vehicle for communication, I'm happy to do it. And I do regular office hours the third Thursday of every month at the Franklin Senior Center at 8:30 in the morning. Love to see people there as well.
Just to mention a couple of other things, we finally do have a handicap accessible at the Dean station.
Yeah.
After many long years.
Yeah.
But we don't have toilets and restrooms on state highways.
Nor do we have electric vehicle fast chargers. So those are two thorns in my side that I'm working with Mass DOT to try to fix. But that's an agency that's very tough to get to.
Well, it's the tourism agency that handles the restrooms, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll be there by the 250th anniversary celebration.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, this is Jeff Roy and Frank Falvey wishing you great, and thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward for you to come back and we can talk some policy matters. So, we're wishing you a great and healthy day. And please come to the polls, or at least, fill out that vote by mail, or come down and see Nancy at the town clerk's office. She would be wonderfully glad to see you and cast your vote.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.